and I am speaking with Michelle and Christyn.
Yes.
They are in New York, and they have a very interesting history with early puberty, and they had to deal with it. And Christyn, if it's okay with you, I'm going to let you start, but I'll kind of set up the framework. So in 4th grade, Christyn was developing much faster than all the other students. And this not only alarmed her, but it alarmed her mother. And relative to the recent research and all the news and articles coming out about early puberty, I wanted you to hear this encouraging story and how they made it work and made it work well. So tell us a little bit about Christyn. What happened?
Well, around 4th grade, around that time, about mid through the year, we had to both experience. I started growing taller, developing a little bit more. I was eventually heads above the other girls in my class, even some of the boys. So it was definitely a physical maturity.
So, yeah, you were saying you grew a head taller, I think, right? Yes. Yeah. So you're much taller, and you're developing breast. And what else happened?
Well, at that time, I was going through a bit of a crisis within myself because I'm like, what's going on? Why me? Like, why does this have to happen to me? Because I really stood out, and at that time, you just want to kind of blend in and just be part of the group like we always were, and now all of a sudden, oh great, I'm the freak, you know? Kind of that mentality at that point.
Michelle, I'll call you Mom if that's all right. Mom. What?
That's fine.
When you first noticed this, what was your immediate reaction?
My immediate reaction was to say to my husband, "Is this my imagination, or is this happening?" And we had that conversation between the two of us, and we decided we needed to do something. So, I went to the library. I asked for a book. Luckily, there was one, and again, I can't remember the title. It's unfortunate. Aimed more towards younger girls, so that wouldn't be quite so scary. And we got the book. My husband and I looked at it together, and then Christyn and I spent about a week reading each section of the book. And there was a little jealousy. The brothers wanted to know what we were talking about, and it was sort of like a mystery, but it was just our time, and we would go up to her room, and we would read a section, and I would ask her if she had questions, and we would go through the whole
What was the most memorable
book.
section for you? Do you remember?
Trying to remember. Probably the one about menstruation, because at that point, I knew nothing really. Like, I knew what she was talking about, but nothing like specifics. So we went through that, and it was kind of like, this happens, that stuck out in my mind. It was definitely the book that we were talking about. It was very good for some of my age because something like that sticks out. Like, at least I remember there was a book. It was very helpful for me.
Okay.
I think.
So, and we're talking 4th grade and then going into 5th. So, were you about 9?
Yes, 9.
Okay.
Yes, 9.
What about your friends? And one of the things in my book, I spend a lot of time talking about just how important and how driving the forces of friendships and relationships are. Especially to the socio-emotional health of teens. But you certainly weren't a teen. You were just coming out of your preteen, almost, but not quite. So, did anything happen to your relationships with your friends?
My relationships basically remained constant. There wasn't a great deviation of anybody or people really. There wasn't any bullying with it. It was more of they started to accept the fact because they were still, we were all still pretty young. So it was just kind of like, oh, she's a tall girl in the class now. And so it wasn't, there might have been some fear of like, don't make fun of the biggest girl in the class, you know what I mean? But there was definitely more so was my friends accepting that, and I'm thankful for that because it could have been a lot worse. They nicknamed me like too tall, and they're like, we want her on the basketball team with us because she's the tallest. It was more of a accepting thing, especially surprisingly with the boys in the class. I faced no harassment. I was actually more accepted with something like sports because I was more at their physical level at that point. So I didn't experience any really negative side effects of this, I'd say.
Michelle, you are a teacher. Were you the teacher in the same school that she was at during that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I teach in the same school that they go to.
Advocating for her during that time, did you do anything special? Did you talk to the teachers, the principal, or about things that you wanted to watch for?
I did go to her teacher in 4th grade, and of course, I've been at the same school for 25 years, so I know all of them. Some of them could be my children, which is another story. But I went to the 4th grade teacher and said, we've noticed this, and sort of a heads up, and could you let me know if there are problems? I don't think she knows that I did that. No. But it was, teacher to teacher, parent to parent kind of thing. If you notice a problem, or if you happen to see that she's moody, just kind of want to give you a heads up.
I think a really seamless process.
And that's big.
Really.
I mean, because
for you it's
great. I mean, you were administrating, so were you really moody?
At the beginning of 5th grade, before it actually happened, I was experiencing some weird, just very emotional things. Like I remember, one example, I was mean to this one girl that lived next door to us, and the one night I'm just like, I'm so sorry for that, and I'm like, oh my God, Mom and Dad, and for some weird reason I felt really bad about this one incident we had like 2 years ago. It was just weird, like it was bugging me, and I got all emotional about it, and they're like, it's okay, it was 2 years ago, and it was something, just a couple weird instances like that, and I'm like, why am I breaking down here? But really it was a little bit, but nothing that was like she needs some help. It wasn't anything really dramatic where they'd be worried about me. I don't think.
And I think too, one of the things I did say to the principal was we need to consider, trash cans inside the restroom, because each classroom has its own restroom. But we need to think about dealing with this issue, because this is happening, and if it's happening to my daughter in 4th grade, who knows what's going to happen in the future.
Receptacles would be outside of the bathroom, and it would be like a show.
So it's a little more embarrassing. So we need to, as much as we may not want to talk about it, we need to address that. And the 2 years that I taught 5th grade, I made sure. I personally started menstruating in 6th grade, so I kind of know what she feels like, because you're kind of alone, and what do you do now with this stuff? Because at home you have your process. Now you're out in public, you're in school, and all your friends are watching you. So when I taught 5th grade, there was a garbage can in our bathroom, and there was a discussion with all the girls about, and the fact that I had extra supplies should you need them. And those are the things I think that I kind of went to the principal about, and to say, we need to think about this, we need to address this. I don't know if it happened. That's a great point,
though. I mean, so when parents do have children, especially girls who are hitting puberty early, making sure when they advocate for that child at the school that they take care of these very personal issues, and make sure those are addressed well. That's a great point.
And it's a lot easier, I think, on the
it's a lot easier, I think, on the child, the girl, if mom or dad or whomever the adult in their life is the one to say, we need to address this, and not have the 10-year-old saying to their teacher, I need a garbage can in the bathroom, please. If we could
I was
make
too embarrassed to ask. I remember. I was too embarrassed to ask about having receptacle, because it would basically be just for me, and it'd be like Christyn's can or something, and you'd just be like, and you're like, how do I ask about this? And everyone will know, because I'll ask, and they'll know it's not them.
Were there any other girls in the school that hit puberty early like you, or was it just you?
Because it was such a small class.
Because it was such a small class, and we were a smaller school, I'm not sure what percentages are for girls in a class or in a group of students hitting puberty early, but me, from what I knew, because there was only so many girls I was friends with and communicated with because their class was so small, from what I knew, I was the only one. Other people might have been close after me, but I was definitely like the first and had to deal with it alone for a long time. It's like, this might just be my perception at that time, was that I'm the only one, but as far as I knew, I was really the only one in 5th grade going through that. The next year, we definitely hit different points with different people, but for me at that point, it was definitely I think I was the loner.
And as you developed further, and let's talk about 7th and 8th and 9th grade. Through those areas, did you have? Do you think, as you look back, you had any shifts in friendships? I know you said you went to a K through 12, I believe, right? Okay, so you went through K through 12, so everybody did know everybody for a very long, extended period of time. But do you remember feeling more mature in your thinking than a lot of your friends as a result of this?
Very much so.
Yes, very much so. And I didn't. I could have taken it in a condescending, more like high and mighty way, but I really felt like I felt different, like obviously for various reasons, but in my thinking, I felt more mature, and it was hard because you almost were like, I'm afraid to think like this or talk like this at first because I have no one to relate to. I'd be hanging out with like the adults, like with the teachers, like talking to them, and I'd be like, and everyone's kind of like teacher's pet, you know what I mean? And eventually I used it to my advantage. I started, getting, what happened is I got out of my school more. I went down to Washington for leadership conferences, just the whole 9 yards, stuff like that, where it helped me with that higher, because I'm like, I'm not the only one, and it was a different thing to happen, was, like, I'm not just, because it always was attributed to, oh, she's just smart, that's why she's like that, I really did feel different, and it didn't really harm anything, but it kind of made some situations and friendships a little awkward.
It sounds like you just really took what you had and made the very most of it. Mom, did you have to, did you notice any particular issues during those years that you had to deal with?
No, other than coming home and complaining
other than coming home and complaining how immature everyone was. Again, I think I have a little bit of an advantage, an insider advantage that a lot of parents don't have working in the same school. So if there were, and I don't even recall anybody, talking to me about any issues with her. Mostly it was the compliments. Christyn's so bright. Right. Christyn's, so insightful, which is nice to hear. And then also thinking on the other side, like she said, I don't want her to get this big huge head and have no friends, and her only friends be the teachers, because she has always been well spoken, always talked to adults and those kinds of things. So
okay,
but I don't remember anything
and
big.
one of the things that happens during those years, especially if you hit puberty early, you're going to be going through a number of years where you actually prune